With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today. With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today. To fanzone.vegasnation.com.
Hey everyone, it's Ed Graney here, the sports columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and I'm here to answer all of your questions in the Vegas Nation Fan Zone. Hey everyone, it's Ed Graney here, the sports columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and I'm here to answer all of your questions in the Vegas Nation Fan Zone. Hey everyone, it's Ed Graney here, the sports columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Ask the producers what's going on. That's my bad there. I think I had some feedback there. But listen, send in your questions to the fan zone. What's going on? And we can get to the questions right away. Anything that's about my bad there. I think defense, I had some feedback there. But listen, send in your questions. Send the questions into the YouTube. What's going on? And to do there. I apologize. So let's get to the questions here. Again, ask any question about the Raiders, the offense, the defense, the special teams. I did have a few sent in on Twitter today, and I'm going to read. Let's start with a few of the questions. So the first came in from James Branway of Twitter, and he said, how much longer are we going to put up with Gunther's Swiss cheese defense and make a move and bring in a new coordinator? Well, I think, James, if you listened to John Gruden yesterday, they are not going to bring in a new coordinator right now. They are sticking together. They are bonding together. And I think that means that they sort of know what the problem is. Usually when you don't make a coaching change, you know what the problem is, and often that is the players. So John said that they're going to get in the laboratory and figure this out. Maybe they blitz more at Cleveland on Sunday. Maybe the personnel groupings are differently. Maybe the stunts are differently. The schemes are differently. I don't know. We're going to see on Sunday. But I do think he believes in Paul Gunther. I think they look at how some of these players, Corey Littleton, Malik Collins for two, have underachieved in terms of what they thought they would be when they signed these guys to pretty nice deals. So I don't think Paul Gunther is going anywhere, and I don't know if I agree he should. Let's be honest, and I wrote this for the paper today, you know, in the first 2 years under John, and then eventually Mike Mayock, most of their free agent money was spent on offense. And I do think they've done a good job evaluating offense. I think they've done a good job drafting offense. And I think if for whatever reason they make the playoffs, they have an offense that is capable of doing things and moving the ball. Defensively, they did not spend a lot of money until this last offseason. Like I said, Malik Collins, Corey Littleton, Nick Kwiatkowski, people like that, they brought in. So this is the first time really Gunther's had what he believed, I think, a full defensive of players that could come in and perform. Now, here's the problem: they haven't done that. So the guys they spent a lot of money on have underachieved to this point, and they've got to get going here. Pass rush wise, right now there really is no pass rush. I think their best defensive lineman at this point is Maurice Hurst. But guys have underachieved, and if you don't have a pass rush up front, as you know as well as anyone, the back end guys are just left exposed. That means you can't blitz as much. That means you can't keep them on an island as much. And that, to me, is going to be a bigger issue than anything going forward. Second question here. This is how we do it in 2020. I'm going to call this up from Twitter. Dollar Man has spoken. He wants to know, do the Raiders regret firing defensive line coach Reston Bruckner? I don't know if they regret it. Again, Rod Marinelli's the new defensive line coach. He had a great relationship with Gruden, was on the Super Bowl team with Gruden in Tampa Bay. Mike Mayock, the general manager, has a really good relationship with Rod Marinelli. And at the end of the day, again, I don't know how much of it is scheme, and I don't know how much of it is not performing and not performing up to your abilities. So you can have the greatest defensive line coach in the league, and if the players aren't performing up to their abilities, it's pretty tough. Again, we'll see. I'm really interested to see on Sunday in Cleveland what they do with the defensive line, because I think that's the main position that we need to look at in terms of this whole going into the laboratory, in terms of this whole we're going to change things up. Watch the defensive line on Sunday, because I think if there's a lot of changes, it's going to come there. I think you could see someone maybe like Chris Smith. Chris Smith was activated off the practice squad for one game at Kansas City. He had one of the 2 sacks against Pat Mahomes. I was actually surprised Chris Smith wasn't active last week just because of how he performed against the Chiefs. So maybe that's what they do. Maybe they look to their practice squad. Maybe they look to make a trade somewhere to try to add talent. It's hard at this time of the year to find guys that are open in terms of the market and what you'd have to pay for them, what the give back would be. But I think right now everything's on the table defensively. They are bottom 4 in all the major categories defensively in the league. They really haven't played well in any form of their defense. They've also had a lot of injuries. They've had COVID issues, guys on the COVID list. We haven't seen much at all of Damon Arnett, the draft pick, because of injury. He was also on the COVID list. So Sunday in Cleveland is going to be a really, really fascinating game to me to see how they defend Baker Mayfield and how they defend a quarterback who, if you don't get pressure on him, as we saw the other day against Cincinnati, Baker Mayfield can come up and throw for 5 touchdowns if he has to win a game. Send in your questions again. You see it there, the Q&A. We're live right now. Before we get more questions, I do want to go also over to the other side of the ball, because I think one thing they've got to do better as well is run the football. That's not kind of breaking any news here. That's not coming up with something creative. I think right now they're not running the ball well enough to be a playoff team as they'd want to, which is to go into the playoffs and have a chance to win a game and to advance. You've got to run the ball better than they have. Now, last week they played the best run defense in the entire NFL. I didn't expect them to run for a lot of yards last week, but you can't have a game where Derek Carr is your second leading rusher with 19 yards and where your primary back, Josh Jacobs, is 10 rushes for 17 yards. That doesn't work. So what they're going to have to do is find some way to first get the offensive line healthy. You've got to get that offensive line healthy. If you do that, then all of a sudden, Josh Jacobs has more running lanes. Richie Incognito, I think, is huge to get back. He's kind of that nasty guard in terms of how he plays. Very, very good at opening things up. But they've got to find a way. Josh Jacobs, I think right now, is averaging under 4 yards a carry. I don't know if they can keep doing that and expect to win a lot of these games down the stretch. So they've got to get the offensive line healthy. They've got to run the football. It doesn't mean they have to average 150, 160 yards a week running the football, but they have to run the football well enough to where at least it's a threat enough to where you're just not worrying about the pass. They run a lot on first down. They did it the other day as well. And I think more and more, if they mix that up in terms of play calling and he throws more on first down, they might have a chance to even do better offensively there. The other thing I think that's coming up that people are going to want to know about is the schedule, in terms of everyone says, okay, the schedule is going to soften. I think it's going to soften, but here's the thing with that. We're looking down the road. Even a kid like Justin Herbert, the rookie with the Chargers, where Baker Mayfield this week, Matt Ryan, as poorly as the Atlanta's record is, they can still score 40 on a given week. We saw what happened, as crazy as this sounds, but I was in the game last year in New York where Sam Darnold and the Jets just took it to the Raiders in the rain. My point is, there's just no game that you can continue to play defense as they have and still, expect to win or expect to be in it. So while you think the schedule is going to soften, they still have to play the Chiefs again, by the way, in Las Vegas. Still get Mahomes. Miami with Tua, you don't know what Tua is going to look like. They've got to start pressuring the quarterback defensively to get into a more winnable mode. If in fact it's not a week where the offense can score 35, 40 points. We have another question coming in right now about Henry Ruggs in terms of his development. Well, Henry Ruggs was hurt, as we know. I think the one game at Kansas City, we saw what Henry Ruggs is capable of. But I think, again, the one thing I want to see with Henry Ruggs in terms of his maturation is this. We know he can run deep. We know he's fast. We know he can get open. How will Henry Ruggs be over time on underneath routes, short outs, screens? Can he make people miss? Can he gain yardage after catch in terms of being hit? So that, to me, in terms of the question of what I'm looking more for, and you're seeing some highlights of Henry Ruggs right there, right now, on these quick outs, turning up, that to me is what I want to see. If you're just asking Henry Ruggs to run a go route to the end zone like he just did, or a post and try to get over a safety, he can do that all day long. If you're going to be a complete back in the NFL, though, you've got to be able to do all the complete things, and that's what we're going to look for from Henry Ruggs. I thought I loved the fact on special teams against the Buccaneers, 45-20 wasn't a great result for the Raiders. I love that John Gruden called for the fake punt. I thought that was something he has to be doing. And we talked about this week, not only in the newspaper, but on the radio, in terms of when are you aggressive and when are you not aggressive. And to me, they need to be more aggressive. When you know your defense is struggling and you have a 4th and 1 in a 7-point game with about 8 minutes left in the territory of the Buccaneers, I would have preferred he went for it on that 4th down, because how many more times with the way your defense is playing are you going to have an ability to have a 1-possession game and go for it? So I didn't agree with the decision to kick the field goal at all, to go 24-20 there. And what happened? Brady got the ball back. Now the Raiders helped them a lot. They gave up the 3rd and 13 to Fournette, which can never happen on a dump down. Trayvon Mullen gets the interference, and then he gets caught up on a coverage there. So to me, that was the critical play of the 3rd and 13, and I thought they should have gone for it. Adrian's checking in here. Should Jeff Heath start in Eric Harris's place? It's a great question. If you look at their Pro Football Focus rankings, they're kind of the same. I've actually got all the Pro Football Focus rankings here in terms of their numbers, and they're not that far apart. So I don't know the difference there in terms of if you would start Heath over Harris. I don't think it could hurt. I liked what Heath did the other day, Adrian. I think he had 6 tackles. He converted the fake punt. That was a good call, and I thought he did well there. So yeah, if you're asking me if I'd start him at Cleveland, again, this is going back into the laboratory of John Gruden. Adrian, I would not be surprised if not only he started, but you see a lot of other differences in terms of what that lineup will be. Damon Arnett, we have heard, is still a couple weeks away, if not several weeks away. So they're going to have to make do without him. Nevin Lawson got caught up in some bad matchups the other day. One, you saw Adrian Gronk in the end zone. That was just a really, really, Anthony had that question. That was a really, really bad matchup in terms of Nevin Lawson against Gronk. I'm seeing more questions here. Give me time. I've seen a lot of Gunther questions, and I can just go with what John said yesterday, that they're sticking with their coaches, they're bonding, sticking together. I understand the frustration. I understand when a unit like the defense plays this poorly, that it's always going to be a lot of factions say, what about the coaching? But I can only say what John said yesterday, and they're going to stick with it. That to me means, I don't know what you guys think, that to me means they know the issue is more a player issue. People are going to agree or disagree with that. That's fine. But for now, I just think that they've decided it's their players, and they're going to try to put their players in a different situation in terms of blitzing or scheme or whatever. I'm trying to see. Ez says, let me see here what Ez is saying. Wasting our offensive talent on the team and our time and our loyalty. Well, okay. I mean, look, I understand it. Again, Edwards, they expect that's Roland Edwards. John said yesterday, hopefully soon. Usually in the NFL, that means 1 to 2 weeks. That's usually kind of the code word for soon, 1 to 2 weeks. Could we possibly be over-evaluating our draft picks? Our D-line should be better. And how do you think David Irving will help? Great question. So, and I wrote this today. I really think they should hire a defensive evaluator. I truly believe that obviously John is a huge offensive evaluator, and he spends a lot of time on that. They've spent a lot of time. I think they've done well offensively in terms of evaluating, but defensively, I do think there's question marks, Kyle, and that's a really good question. I wrote that today. I wouldn't mind them going out and getting a specific defensive evaluator for the draft and really honing in. I don't know the answer to this question, and maybe you guys have some opinion. Did John Gruden watch film as much of Henry Ruggs or of Damon Arnett as he did Henry Ruggs? I don't know that. Roland comes up with John Fox. Maybe you go get John Fox. Maybe you get someone to say, look, all you're going to do, and I know they already have scouts, but all you're going to do is you're going to evaluate every defensive player we're even thinking about either signing and or drafting. I think they should go get someone like that. I think that would help Paul Guenther a lot. I think that would help the entire team to have someone only focusing defensively on evaluating. I thought that was a great question, Kyle, because I do believe the evaluation has suffered defensively. I like the John Fox angle too. Should the Raiders go out and trade for someone? Defensively, at this point, I don't know what the give back would be. You guys tell me. I mean, if you go get a defensive end who's as good as Max Crosby, would you give back a third or fourth? I would. I'd go get someone. Now, again, how much does he make? What's the salary cap hit? Another from Roland, Wade Phillips. I talked to Coach Phillips a couple weeks ago about Corey Littleton for something I wrote for the paper. Wade Phillips is kind of sitting around right now. He has a lot of experience. We've seen what he can do for defense. So these are great names that Roland's bringing up, whether it's John Fox or Wade Phillips. In terms of someone, I'm not even saying they have to be the defensive coordinator. Maybe, Paul Guenther, you have to remember, Paul Guenther had top 20 defenses in Cincinnati. Marvin was more of a defensive-minded guy. Here, the guys in charge are offensive-minded. That's why I truly believe they could help Paul Guenther out a lot by getting someone in the organization, Roland saying John Fox or Wade Phillips, to come in and become a, somewhat of a evaluator. And then, look, if you want to make a change after that, you have someone in the waiting. Anthony comes up with Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan's another defensive-minded guy. I don't know what it would take. These are pretty big names in terms of John Fox, Wade Phillips, and Rex Ryan. I don't know what it would take to get them here, but a lot of those guys are sitting around and they love football. And like I said, you bring one of them in as assistant defensive coach, whatever you want to call it. They can put anyone on the staff, an evaluator. And if Paul doesn't work out, you've got someone there who has proven to have done the job. So those are all great names, but Anthony, Roland, all you guys asking questions, I think we all agree that defensively, they're going to have to get better. I think it's a playoff team. I do. Extra wild card there. I think they're in the 9th hole right now. They're one spot out of the playoffs right now. And there's a lot of football to be played. So it's even silly to be talking about the playoffs at this point. But I think they have a playoff offense. I think all of you guys are going to agree with me that defensively, if they could just get, like right now, they're 28th, 29th defensively. If they could somehow just improve to mid-20s or low 20s, then I think you make the playoffs. I think it's really hard to stay in the 29 range, even if your offense is, playoff offense, and still make it. They're going to have to prove they can stop somebody. Another name, everyone's wanting to fire Paul Guenther today. Another name, can we hire Wade Phillips again as do you think there's loyalty to Paul Guenther? Look, yeah, there's loyalty to Paul Guenther. I don't think there's any question about that. They brought him in. And I do believe, because I have heard them say this often, I do believe they also realized they did not spend money defensively for the first 2 years. They didn't. John Gruden's defense the first 2 years were minimum salary vets, as you guys know, or rookies. I don't believe that Paul Guenther was given a defense the first 2 years that most people could have been successful with. I get that. And I get that. I get the whole Paul Guenther, should he be the guy? Should he be the scapegoat? But I'll tell you this. If they would have fired him yesterday, I would have put an onus as much, if not more, on Mike Mayock and John Gruden for the simple reason is they're the ones who signed and drafted the guys that he had to coach. I'm not saying Paul is, excuse of all responsibility. He's the defensive coordinator. He's in charge of that side of the ball. But eventually, also, you have to coach the people they give you. I don't know personally how much input Paul had. I'm sure they asked him. I'm sure they showed him defensive players. But at the end of the day, you guys know as well as anyone, John and Mike's personalities, they run that team. And I think if it came down to it in the draft room, they're the ones making the decisions. And the decisions they've made so far defensively have not worked out, more so than not. Let's see, Anthony. Well, again, Anthony, you might be right. And that's the other thing about Paul Guenther. I think John said yesterday they're sticking together. Look, I know you guys as fans don't want this to happen, but they go to Cleveland and get run. They go to the charge, and Justin Herbert's out there throwing 5 touchdowns. I think this whole we're bonding, we're sticking together is a week-to-week basis in the NFL. But that's like everyone. That's no knock against Paul. I think that's when you're a coordinator in this league and the unit you're coaching isn't performing well, this whole bonding and sticking together can be a week-to-week issue and not a whole season. Now, if you listen to John yesterday, they're sticking together. To me, that's for now. You have to go and go week to week and see what happens. They're in Cleveland this week. Like I said, OBJ's out. Feel bad for him. You don't want people ripping up their knees. But I will tell you that if you've watched Baker Mayfield enough, if you don't get to him, he could cause troubles. Kyle, should we get Key back at linebacker? I think a lot of our DL is too light or too small. Could they do more in a 3-4? Great question. John went out of his way the other day to say if we're going to rush 4, we better do a better job. When you talk about Key, and this is surprising, and I don't know how much you guys are into Pro Football Focus. You might be able to tell me in the chat. Like, I'm a huge PFF guy. 2 things that shocked me today that my partner Tyler Bischoff told me on the radio was that Maurice Hurst is only playing 34% of the snaps, which shocks me because I think he's their best defensive lineman. And Arden Key actually graded out really well for the time he's been in there. I think it's over 50 on a PFF rating, and he's played, I think, 49% of the stats. Both those surprised me because I don't hear Arden Key's name a lot during games when we're there. So maybe Kyle's onto something and you can move him back into a linebacker spot so you're not as light on the edge and you're not as light up there in terms of trying to apply pressure. Anthony, Gabe Jackson. Okay, so I'm glad you asked that. I didn't see it either when Gabe Jackson got ejected. We watched that over and over and over. And then there was one TV angle where he did apply pressure, step down on the shoulder of the opposing player. And that had to be it. We had a pool reporter, Vic Tafer of The Athletic, asked the officials afterwards, and the exact explanation was that he stepped on the shoulder of the Tampa Bay player on the field. But I thought the exact same thing. I looked at it, and we looked at this thing 20 times, and we couldn't understand why he was kicked out. It certainly didn't help. He can't get kicked out. They're short enough on the offensive line, so you can't have that guy getting kicked out. This is a good one. Roland, Gruden needs to give the play calling responsibilities to someone else. Roland, I'm trying to think. I'd be, if that ever happens, I'm 6'6". I don't think he's ever giving up the play calling responsibilities in any shape or form. It's just John. It's John's offense. It's how he does things. I think Greg Olsen does a nice job. If you see him come off the field, he'll sit with Derek, get the iPad out, and they'll look at what happened. When it comes to that offense, Roland, it's wishful thinking, I would think at this point. Mojo, my issue with Guenther is short of perfect. He's never had his linebackers excel. Is this his scheme that makes linebackers disappear? Well, that's a great question. Let's take Corey Littleton. Corey Littleton was the 2nd-ranked PFF linebacker in the league last year, but a lot of people will also tell you Corey Littleton's grade last year had a lot to do with he was probably the 5th or 6th best player on the Rams last year. They have a lot of great defensive players. Here, you gave him that contract. It's like you're supposed to be the star of the defense. So I don't know, Mojo, if it's more Guenther's scheme or if it's more Corey Littleton is not a star, but just a really good complementary player. At this point, he's neither. He's got a PFF rating in the 30s. So he has not done what he was supposed to do. I think over time, Mojo, that question will be asked more if it's Paul Guenther's linebackers or if it's just someone like Corey Littleton completely underachieving. Let's go to one others. Could bringing in vets on the defense fill playmaker roles? Is Tanner Muse? Tanner Muse is a great question because I think when they drafted him, as well as anyone, Kyle, it was more for special teams. I think he was behind. The COVID did not help players like Tanner Muse. Not having practices And that goes to a lot of these guys. And one thing I do agree with John is, and Corey Littleton fits into this as well, COVID really hurt them tackling. Even a guy like Corey Littleton, who's been around a long time, you have to practice tackling. You have to have OTAs. You have to have mini camps. They didn't get any of that with COVID. And a guy like Tanner Muse, who's coming into this league, trying to make it as a in coverage and being an every down player, that really hurt him. I don't think Tanner Muse is a player, an every down player until 1 or 2 years from now. I just think it really, really set him back. That appears right now to be it. Roland, Kyle, Anthony, Mojo, Jaime, all you guys, I really appreciate it. Stay with us each week on the Fan Zone, man. We'll ask as many questions as we can. Love that you guys are passionate fans. They go to Cleveland. I think there's a chance they get it. They've got to get to Baker, obviously. Roland's last comment there. Tom Cable deserves a lot of credit. I totally agree. It's patchwork right now, week to week. Tom Cable doesn't know who he's going to have on his offensive line, and I do think Tom has done a really, really good job with that. Just let's have Gabe Jackson not get ejected. They need Richie Incognito healthy. He's nasty. He's going to help Josh Jacobs out a lot. They need Trent Brown to remember to wear his tracker. That's not a big deal. Just remember to wear your tracker, and you can get past the COVID stuff. So if they get that line back, maybe we're talking about Josh Jacobs next week, not having 17 yards, coming back and doing what that run game should do to complement what I believe is a really good pass game. I think Derek's having a really, really fine season. So I appreciate you guys. And next week we'll have someone else in here answering live questions. And take care of yourselves. And again, all of us at the Review Journal and Vegas Nation really appreciate you guys being involved here and subscribing and enjoying our coverage. We're trying the best we can to get you as much different coverage on as many platforms as we can find. So thanks very much, and know that you are appreciated. Take care of yourselves.